You are listening to The Edge, a podcast for personal development junkies and visionaries living right at the precipice of oh shit meets fuck yeah. I'm Nadia Munda, an embodiment and relationship coach and a lover of all edges. Stick around to listen to raw, unpolished conversations where we explore our personal and collective edges in all their erotic glory. I feel like we're so overdue on a catch up, and so I think it's really fun that we get to catch up in front of a whole bunch of people.
Yeah, I was thinking about it when I was listening to your message today, and you were sharing how we haven't actually met, which it feels like we've met. I feel like I know you so well, and it's weird that our physical beings have actually never been in the same place at the same time.
Yeah, I was thinking that too. And how many times we're like messaging each other, like in a bathtub or doing random shit. And I'm like, oh, wow, like to have a level of intimacy with someone you've never actually like touched in the flesh. Like, it's just so interesting once we do meet up in the flesh. Like, I'm like, how, like, what happens? Sometimes it gets, I find, I don't know how you feel about internet friends, but sometimes it's like awkward. You're like, wait, you're so much taller than I thought you were.
Yeah,
Or
totally.
like,
I usually get the opposite. Like, you're so small. I thought you were much taller. Yeah.
okay. Yeah. Then you and I must be the same because usually most people I meet, they're super tall. I'm on the
Yeah.
shorter side. So I'm always like, oh, hey.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Oh.
Cool. So, Amanda, I have a lot of things to ask you today because I've been really thinking about this in preparation for our conversation. And I was like, okay, what are some things that I feel our communities could be really interested in hearing about? And in particular, what it is that I've been personally interested in understanding more about with regards to the world of Tantra. Because everyone listening probably knows that I work in the world of embodiment and I obviously play in the world of Tantra, but I've never actually, I move away from using the word Tantra a lot because I don't actually have a lineage that I studied under that is technically Tantra. And so I work, I prefer to, when I'm teaching, refer to it as energetic sex or embodied intimacy or these types of things. Although ultimately, let's be real, it's just semantics. It's about like, how deeply can we be in our eros with ourselves, with other, and with the divine. And so I was thinking a lot more about like, okay, so what is it about me that has me shy away from moving deeper into the Tantra world? And honestly, the first thing that comes up is the reputation. Like, oh, there's these thoughts that come up like, it's going to be like, there's going to be power dynamics. It's going to be like spaces that actually don't feel safe, where there's supposedly consent, but there isn't. And so the reason I bring this to you is because you're one of the only people who I know that is creating tantric spaces that I know, like I would trust, to go into. But just happens to be you're on the other side of the world. So I can't actually come to your temples just yet. And so I'd love to just start us off with talking a little bit about the baggage, the bad reputation of Tantra, and like how you personally worked through, I don't know if you had that, but how you work through that, or how you help those who are coming to you with that impression. How do you help them land into safety and more like expansion into exploration? Because it's a vulnerable freaking thing.
Yes, I think this is an amazing place to start. I think you're pointing to one of the reasons why many people actually, shy away from these spaces, especially people who have had abuse of any sort of kind, especially sexual abuse, or people who haven't felt safe in their sexuality or in their bodies at all. And with many of the scandals that have gone on around the power dynamics with the leaders and the people who are coming to learn from them, unfortunately, there's been a lot of challenge in this area. And for me, It's so funny because now I feel like I forgot the question, what the actual essence of the question was. So can you
Well, like,
just ask the question? Yeah.
yeah, like I feel for me, my hesitation is that if I don't know of a lot of people who've gone and been in a particular space and said, this is solid,
Yeah.
I get so nervous about going into spaces because I have a very strong personal boundary, and I'm incredibly open when I feel safe and when it's with the right people. But I've found myself, even in situations that aren't necessarily like a Tantra workshop, but like just personal development of any sort, like there are times where it's actually really hard to say, hey, no, I don't want to do this.
Hmm.
And of course it's our own responsibility to advocate for ourselves, but there's moments, especially if there's trauma, where we
Yeah.
actually can't, right? So we
Yeah.
go into this freeze mode, and so
Or
then
fawn. Yeah.
yeah, and there's like, okay, I guess I'll just do it, or and then after the fact be like, oh, I don't know that I wanted to do that. And
Yeah.
so I think that's the biggest piece for me that comes up, where I'm like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to opt out, or if I'm going to seem like the weird
Hmm.
one. That's my big thing, is like, I don't want to be the weird one who doesn't want to do the things, you know?
Yeah,
So
yeah, the sheep mentality. Yeah, yeah. And this is peer pressure, like feeling peer pressured and not knowing. And I think fortunately for the world of Tantra, at least where I'm starting to see a big shift in is now we are aware of that. Like whereas before it was very much guru and students dynamic. And there is a desire to learn, and there is something called an initiation that I was initiated by one of my teachers, and that was an incredible transmission. And I'm sure you've been given transmissions by some of your lovers or maybe some of your teachers in different ways. Some of them may be sexual, some of them maybe through embodiment, etc., your dance teachers, etc. But I feel like now one thing that I can really say that's beautiful is that I see more and more people who are starting to become trauma aware and trauma informed, and starting to celebrate people who say no instead of feeling like, yeah, we all need to do it. And there's also a space of like, and is know your pattern? Because if no is your pattern and it's your exit route and it's your comfort zone, we
mm,
really invite you to try something new, and just know that at any moment you can stop and any moment you can pause. And I think the space of creating a safe space is one of the most challenging things that we could potentially do. Because the truth is that there is no real safe space, and there are things that the leader can do to cultivate invitations for people to drop deeper. And I noticed myself, I speaking into it, like also when you have a group field, where are people at on the spectrum? So one of the things that I really try to do is pre-qualify people who come into our spaces, because I don't necessarily teach for beginners. Like working on boundaries and working on consent is something that I want everybody who come into our temples at least to have some sort of an awareness of, hey, I have trauma. Hey, I know that I go into a freeze. Hey, I know that I struggle with my boundaries and I'm working on it. And that's why I'm here. And I'm wanting to like step into these edges. And I'm wanting to be held in a space where I know that if anything were to happen and I raise my hand or I call for help, you have a whole team of people who can support me. And that's welcome and that's willing. And my tears are welcome. And it's not just about sexuality. And I think this is where, yeah, for me, it's all about devotion. And I've been finding it more and more that this is my actual deepest truth, is that I want to be in a space where it's actually not about sexuality at all. Sexuality just exists when we're all in this space so deeply dropped into ourselves. And I'm noticing that the temple culture has become more focused on sexuality rather than prayer and devotion and opening and honoring and presence. And my biggest work, as I'm seeing this, is now to start to shift the energetics of my containers to prayer and devotion and slowing down and honoring. And then from that space, sexuality can emerge. And I noticed for a while, I want to be honest, that like I was sharing more from like a everybody wants the sexuality, and I think it's the sexuality spaces are amazing, and I think they've transformed my life, and they've given me so much permission, and they've given me fun, and they're a place where embodied humans like ourselves can explore ourselves with others, dropped in, without the mind, without the words. And I've also noticed that the culture has become wrapped around the idea that the tantric temples, let's say, or tantra in general, is about sexuality, when for me it's about devotion, prayer, honor, worship, and meeting the divine. And so my biggest challenge as a creator is, how can I create a deeply sacred space where the human ego, in seeking and searching and wanting to take, is out of the way, and the souls can really reveal themselves, and from that place sexuality can be made if it wants to create. And having a team, having like a really well informed team where, yeah, having a co-teacher always with me, so nobody's ever in like speaking into the pieces of like, hey, this might be awkward, this might be challenging, hey, if you have trauma and you know you have trauma, or you're prone to freeze, like communicate your boundaries to whoever you're talking to. And really speaking into all of these things, I feel, help me navigate a very challenging space to navigate when there is so much shadow and trauma in the world of sexuality.
Yeah. Just interrupting this episode for a moment to let you know that my event with Chris Bale is coming up on October 7th. It is on the theme of loving transitions, how to consciously navigate relational shifts. We really wanted a chance to speak to this topic in particular. So if you are going through a relational shift, if you are crossing a threshold, be it not just one of possibly separating, but also one of communing, of coming together in marriage, long-term partnership, perhaps there is a welcoming of a lover or a child into your relationship, or perhaps there's a move from one place to another. There's many different shifts that we have to go through as two people in a relationship. And so we wanted to really speak to that, coach to that, teach on that, and bring in the lessons that we have learned as individuals and then in our own relationship shifting. So we would absolutely love to see you there, and it would be an honor for us to support you. So the URL is nice and long, so I'm going to leave it in the show notes for you, or you can head over to my Instagram, which is at Nadia Munla, and it is right there in the link in my bio very clearly. Sometimes that's faster. So whatever is easier for you, I would absolutely love to see you there. And I'll let you get back to the episode. Yeah. I think that's such a beautiful intention, and I'm curious because we need more of that, obviously. And I'm curious what has been the biggest challenge about starting there instead of starting in the sexuality realm.
Yeah, so I feel actually that I kind of came more from the sexuality piece, but the devotion, like the reason why I am in tantra is because I was so deeply spiritual. I think you also had the yoga path, and it's like I was so, for me, I was teaching about the yamas and the niyamas, and really giving philosophy, yoga philosophy, while I was teaching, and that was my favorite part of actually like a good yoga class to me is not just asana, it's bringing in all elements and the devotion to being with yourself in union with this body. And when I found Tantra, I was like, wow, this one piece of all the religions that I studied that none of them talked about is actually here. And now I can integrate them. And so I also found it through the temple arts that was more in sexuality, and then the istas and other things. But then I started reading deeper texts, and I started really understanding the meditation aspect of it.
Hmm.
And I've to be honest, I've been very shy about bringing my depth and my devotion into these spaces, because I had a story that people didn't want it.
Hmm.
I had a story that even though this is what I was doing in my bedroom, like praying to my lover's cock and like bowing down to the divine after we have these rolling four full body orgasms, and I'm in a whole nother universe, like thanking God for this existence. I felt I had this story that people didn't really want that. And only in the last like 6 months did it start to deepen. But even like the last temple that we did, it was like so deep in honoring and pulling up the shame and working with the root and working with the anus and working with practices around really like bringing up like the dark void that nobody wants to talk about, or like even if you do have anal sex, you're doing it kind of secretly or like slyly. Like, when was the last time you really had your anus worshipped? Not from a sexual, I want to pleasure you, because the anus is also an amazing portal, but like really bowing down to this aspect of our human body that is stuck in the shadows. And we went so deep in this container, and how people received it, they said they had some of the most healing experiences, and there wasn't even a space for open play where people could just connect, and everybody was so full, men and women. And we had this beautiful Indian man who was younger. He was 26, and he was like, and of course we all know like how India and the culture and the repression has been there. And he was like, I am in awe. This
Mm.
has transformed my life. I've never seen a woman like in this way, from pure devotion. It's always been from like sexuality when I'm looking at the genitals, let alone like the anus isn't even something that's honored or revered, even in Western culture. It's just something that's sexualized, if at all it can be sexualized. That's already a big step. And so the more and more I see that people are actually really wanting this, and it's what I'm interested in, and the more I claim that and own that, the more I'm starting to attract different people. And that for me is really healing. Yeah.
Mm. Yeah, I mean, the anus, the asshole, whatever we want to call it, like is this spot, we always talk about like, oh, our hips hold so much anger, right? Because that's like still okay to talk about. But it's like the amount of control and like neurotic energy and clenching that we hold in our asshole is truly actually the portal to like surrender. And since both of us are fans of Bali, I was in Bali earlier this year, and I went to, I don't know if you've ever been to the oldest tree on the island, but there's this 700-year-old tree. It's so gorgeous. And so I took the trip there and was sitting in meditation and just asked the tree, like, hey, what what wisdom do you have for me? You've been around for 700 years. Like, let's see what happened. And the first thing I heard was relax your asshole. And then it was like some other more generic stuff, like you've got this, or whatever. But the first thing was relax your asshole. And I just thought it was
Wow.
I thought it was hilarious, because it's so true that
Mhm.
we have all these things we'll do. I mean, a million and one practices. And yet rarely is there anything spoken about when it comes to the anus. And that actually is whether you're doing it yourself, with someone, the combo, but like that is a place that has so much stored shit. I guess
Literally.
literally, that it's yeah, it's just it's a whole world of shadow, as you said. So I love that you're doing that. I think it's so courageous, and like you said, it is going into the depths of things, because most people are like, even just the sexuality piece is incredibly hard
Yeah.
to be treading into as an experience. And so I'm curious at this point, for you in your work or your personal life, what is an edge that you are treading yourself? So I can see
Mm.
that you're really taking yourself to the depths. You're doing the things that you otherwise wouldn't do. What else do you want to speak to around this piece of, yeah, edging into what feels really scary, but
Yeah,
exciting?
so yeah, I can speak both professionally and personally. So professionally, there's two edges. One of them is really bringing my depth of devotion into the public and not serving what I think everybody wants. Like so many people in the tantric world, I have this projection that everybody wants these sexual spaces, which to me feel more like play parties.
Mm.
And I am just not there anymore. I've had so many experiences. Play parties are great. They're fun. They're like mind blowing. You're like watching a foursome or a fivesome, and like you're having a beautiful connection over here with a man, and then you're having another connection over there. And it's like you break through all these paradigms, and it's amazing and it's expanding and it's incredible. I'm not there anymore. I'm like, I've been there, I've done that, I've tasted the rainbow. It's been amazing. Hey, maybe I'll go again once in a while, but I want it to come from a deeper place. My soul longs for more depth. And the best threesomes or foursomes or sexual experiences for me have come from a deeper place. And so my edge is like, how do I bring, the gourmet salad when everybody thinks they want like the burger and fries,
Mm.
or they've been taught and programmed that the burger and fries is like the thing that is like you crave and that's the treat. When I'm like, no, really, the salad is the treat because it's going to give you so much more, not just in this moment, but for the days to come.
Mm.
And so this is like my biggest edge in one aspect professionally. The other big edge, which I notice like there's still a little bit of, when I feel in my body, I have a little contraction in my solar plexus and I feel a little pressure in my heart. And this is a big edge for me. And it's because I started this project, which is why I'm in Ibiza. It's called Mr. and Mrs. I co-founded it with 4 other people. And what we wanted to do was we wanted to take this idea of a conscious party, so kind of like ecstatic dance, no drinking, no alcohol, no drugs, but we wanted to elevate it and make it high end and themed, and everybody had to come in costumes, and like you're not just like in your sweaty hippie clothes on the dance floor, like you come in sexy lingerie and you put energy into this night.
Mm.
And then we wanted to also invite, the temple vibe, and we wanted to invite like deeply dropped in sexuality with a crowd of people. Because I would look around and I'm like, okay, I love to dance. I enjoy partying. I miss going to high end where I would dress up like back in the old days and like wear cute mini skirts and put on my boots and walk in it. But it's like, I don't want to drink anymore. I don't want to go to these types of parties. It's shallow, it's loud, it's disconnected. It doesn't feel good to me. But then how do I combine this all and create a party? And it's been a big edge for me because how do we invite everyone to a degree, because we don't have a screening process like we do inside the temples, into a sexual space, hoping and trusting that they can hold themselves. And we set boundaries and containers as well, like there's no penetration and certain things aren't allowed, so it does already keep the container much safer. But how do we do that and have everybody meet on a level where the frequency is residing in a space that is deeper than just a sexual experience, and it's not a sex club or a play party, but we still want to allow you the freedom as an adult to choose to explore yourself and your sexuality while there's a fucking amazing epic ecstatic dance party happening. And this has been really hard for me. It's been really
Mhm.
hard because navigating how the team feels, navigating like how much permission do we give our audience to explore and how much trust do we give them to explore. How much do we not want to be, hey, we don't want to be the teachers or the leaders, and like, because actually you're an adult and you're here as an adult and you're coming on your own space and you're saying yes to this experience, and there's 300 of you, so it's not in a space for like emotional processing. And we have angels and we have people floating around, so if something's really coming up, you will be supported, but that's not what this is. And how do we hold it at a level and a frequency of depth where it doesn't slip into what people are used to, which is collapsing into sexuality and going to what they know rather than expanding into sexuality.
Mm.
And this has been my greatest edge professionally because I think the first 2 parties we really did. The first party was an experiment. I think it was really good. We learned some things. I think the second party we nailed it. The third party we gave a little bit more freedom, and I personally felt it slipped a little. We gave the audience a bit more freedom, and I feel like it slipped a little bit more into kind of this play party, a little bit more grabby, or like I need to kind of energy. And there was 2 temple spaces happening. And for me, I feel like, oof, that hurt me a little. Like
Mm.
like I felt like, and who am I to judge you for the way that you want to move in a space? And if that's the way that you feel that you want to move, then by all means you go for that. But that's not where I am at.
Mm.
And so for me, that's been a big edge. How do I hold a field and hold a frequency of a certain level that's quite big when, yeah, and give people autonomy and space to explore.
Yeah. Wow. I mean, I just gotta say, I feel, first of all, kudos to you and the team, because that is a huge project to take on, where you have to take into account so many things. And also, the challenge and the edge that you're hitting up against is simply because there's a level of impeccability that you expect of your spaces, which I think is actually very rare. And so I want to reflect back to you that that's really impressive to hear, because most people are not tracking all of that. And I think that's
Mm,
part of, it brings us back to the beginning of the conversation. It's part of why so many people don't feel like comfortable. Like, I don't go to play parties, not because
yeah.
like, to me, I would absolutely love to be in those scenarios. And the couple of times I've been in pseudo versions of that, it's been so loosely held,
Mhm.
and what I label or judge as a hot mess, and just not what I want to be involved in, has me shy away from anything in that realm, because I
Mhm.
go, ooh, I don't know, is this going to be held the way I want it to be held? And so I just am appreciating you for the level of excellence that you guys are expecting of yourselves in your spaces. And I'm sure it was already
Mm.
a million times better than most spaces. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I think the thing for us is like we know that we're there in service.
Mhm.
So we haven't baked the perfect cake yet because we also don't have the same venue. We've also been coming up logistically. There's always like, we're like, okay, we need to pick 3 venues and stay at them so we don't have to at least worry about logistics anymore and we can just focus on the vibe. But I think like one thing that I can say we're all 100% there for is not ourselves. We are all there in service. We wanted the party, we wanted a safe space, we wanted an elevated experience that didn't exist yet. And like, where do I go as when I was a single woman, like connecting, and I wanted to meet in a deeper space in my body without the fucking words. And I really want to meet you somatically in a space where eros can arise and I can dance my fucking heart out. And like those places just didn't really exist. So
Mhm.
yeah, thank you for that reflection because I know I'm really hard on myself because it's not quite yet how I want it. And yeah, it is a big mission and a big
Yeah.
edge.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think what you're speaking to, I mean, when we zoom out from this beautiful experiment that you guys are courageously starting, it's like we all are craving more spaces where there is the fun, the party, the color, like you said, the fun costumes and outfits, the good dancing, the whatever. And there's also the erotic permission. And then there's also the, trauma sensitivity. Like, it's like,
Hmm.
and that triangle is like really hard, because you usually can maybe hit 2 out of 3, but getting all 3 of those is quite a challenge. And
Mission.
so, but I believe in us. I think we can do it. We're just in the very early phases of,
Hmm.
one, even tapping into that desire and understanding how important it is to the evolution of humanity. Because, like you said, it's not anymore about like, woo, fun, let's have some sex. It's like, no, this is about sacred union. This is about getting connected to the deepest, most mystical part of ourselves.
Mm.
And how, by us connecting to ourselves and having that level of intimacy and sensuality with ourselves and in our own bodies, we are then connecting to the collective body, and that will have us make way better decisions as leaders, as humans, in our communities, in our governments, in our whatever. I'm always like, orgasms are going to save the world. It's like, because if, can you imagine if all those people who are making decisions about the environment and whatever else and war and all that stuff were going to your Mr. and Mrs. party, like, it would be a different world.
Yeah.
And I mean, I make assumptions, and maybe I'm assuming on behalf of you and the people, the team of this party and everything else that you do. But I have this feeling we all wake up and do this work, not for the sake of just
Mm.
individual pleasure. I mean, that's beautiful. and important and everyone's birthright, but it's actually about the collective. It's actually about the planet. Like for me, every single time I'm teaching someone how to breathe more deeply, it's like, okay, this is in order for that ripple effect to make its way
Mm.
out into our relationship with the earth, which is the
Yep.
biggest body that we are a part of. But like everyone's just disconnected, and it starts with being disconnected from yourself, and then you're disconnected from your partner, and then you're disconnected from your community, and then you're disconnected from the earth. And it was not going to go on a rant because I always talk about this, but like but to me it's like it's such a service to the world to create those spaces, and we're still figuring out like, okay, how do we do it in a way that is also devoid of the like thousands of years of, like specific religious dogma, the patriarchy, like all these other systems and like internal programming that come into play that make these spaces inherently, like sometimes unsafe. And it's not because of an individual person. I always look at
Mm-hmm.
humans and I'm like, everyone's good and trying their best, but we have these programs, we have these systems inside of us that then create grabby hooky energy, or siphoning extractive energy, which we often feel as women, right? And the feminine is like, we just feel like, oh,
Yeah.
there's like, oh, a need to be pulled and taken, like the light gets pulled out of us. And so I'm very like, nope, nope, no one gets in here unless you've like super
Done your
earned it.
work.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you just for this work. It's really, really
Mm.
beautiful. I want to talk a little bit about how you really ended up where you are now. Because I look at the life that you've created, and of course, I know
Mm.
that there's the whole spectrum of the good, the bad, the pain, the ecstasy, the whole thing, right? Like that's the embodied life. And there is something so incredibly magical, at least from the outside looking in, from me looking at your life, of the
Mm.
sort of tantric family that
Mm.
you've created. And I'm trying to think like what exactly the question is that I have here. I guess I'm just curious to hear a little bit more about how you ended up there. Because at some point it was just you, yoga teacher, doing your thing. Like, how did you end up in this place where there's so much love, at least from where I'm standing? And that's what it feels like. And I'm assuming it is,
Yeah.
right? Because
Yeah.
yeah, I'd love, and I ask this selfishly because I'm someone who is incredibly interested in creating and cultivating a community, a family that is unorthodox. Like, I don't care. I don't need
Mm-hmm.
it to be just like me, my husband, and a kid, Like, I mean, if that ends up happening, great. Like, I'm down for
Yeah.
that too. But there's so many ways that I think we can cultivate the deepest level of love that isn't really shown to
Mm.
us often. And
Mm.
again, it takes us, like, a lot of people go into like, oh, does that mean I have to live like on a commune and like,
Mm.
or be in a cult or do whatever? And it's like, no, there's actually a very modern day, like, pragmatic way of doing this. So yeah, I'm just curious to hear more about whatever you feel to share about that.
Ugh, I love it. I love it. And you're not the first person who like sees this aspect of my life. And sometimes I'm like, yeah, it brings me tears to even think about how rich I feel when it comes to my community and my tantric family and how I've created my life relationally. Like it's so opposite of what I grew up, which was like a father who was completely not in my life, really since age 12, not there emotionally, energetically, or physically. My mother, who was a single mother, who was married and divorced 3 times. I come from a little teeny tiny town in the middle of nowhere in Pueblo, Colorado. Like the odds that I am where I am, like living the life that I'm living, like my mom's communication skills, Jesus bless her, like bless her. My father, like, he committed suicide earlier this year, and so that also shows, like, it paints a picture of like I've done the fucking work. Like I've done a lot of work around, yeah, around where I am. And I think because I didn't have a family who was there, And because, I grew up so alone and I was so isolated, especially emotionally. I remember when I was a child, and I mean, my mom did amazing. Like, she also had her own shit that she dealt with, and I love her so much. And yeah, I remember like I was very emotionally lonely as a child. And I remember really feeling like, wow, I feel so alone, and never do I want anybody to ever feel like this. And I
Mm.
remember going to my room and processing alone and crying and feeling, yeah. And I remember making these declarations to myself, even when I was a young little girl, like, I will never make someone feel like this. I will remember this so that I will do life differently. And that's what I did. And my friends became my family. I'm basically a single child. My mom and my dad both don't talk to their sons, so like, for a long time. So I was basically a single child. I grew up with single mother. I made my friends my family. I took time to get to know them and to really want to understand their inner landscape, because I knew that that was the part of me that my parents didn't have access or couldn't be there for. And that was the part of me that I longed to be seen. So I made it a core value to really be present with people, to listen to them when they speak. Whenever one of my big pet peeves is when we're in a group and somebody starts talking and then somebody interrupts them, and
Mm.
they're sharing something vulnerable or like from their heart, and I'll say, hold on a second, this person was just talking and I'm really interested in what they were saying. So I became hyper aware of group dynamics and how things are playing out. And this has really supported me. Like, my wound, it's like, what is it? The wounded healer. I really feel that that is me. And I think it's many of us who are doing this path. And it's like my wound of not having family. I made it my mission to cultivate like deep, soulful, rich, fulfilling family. And I've been able to do that no matter where I am. When I was in Santa Cruz, I had an amazing soul family. And I now I'm in Amsterdam. When I was in Bali, I also had a beautiful tribe. Like, my mission is to really create these spaces that I was never able to have. And my relationship mindset, we've talked about this I think before on one of my podcasts, like, our relationship, what we know is possible is so far beyond the norm, and it doesn't matter to me what it looks like, it matters to me what it feels like. And I was making a joke the other day, just like yesterday, with Ava, because I mean, I ended up dating Ava, who's like been a partner in some shape or form for the last 4 years. And I never would have thought I would have dated a woman and gone so deep and healed so much of my trauma and my mother wounds and all these things through this relationship. And then I said, I ordered a young tantric Jesus from Spirit. I was like, and somehow I have way more. I have a young tantric Jesus, and I looked at Ava's partner and I said, I have a queen, and then I said, and I have a mature king in my life, and like, and it's all here, and it's all present, and it's all like, really truly, we always laugh like, this is our tantric family. And I could connect with Michelle, which is Ava's partner, sexually in any way, shape, or form that I wanted to, and it would be okay.
Mm.
And Ava could connect with my partner, Shiva, in any way, shape, or form, and it would be okay. Or my best friend Aria, same thing. And like, Aria and I are like, let's have foursome. She can't wait to have a foursome with me and Shiva and her partner. And like, and yeah, I'm just like, yes, please. And Shiva has 2 kids, and I'm like, bring them in, like, let's, like, I would love to be a part of your children's life. And I never thought that this would be my story, but it's like, because I have this capacity to love and to feel beyond and to invite people in, somehow it's just a reflection of what I've been able to cultivate around me. And I think that, yeah, dare to dream big, and dare to really own what you want, and then be loving and open, and yeah, meet people who are wanting the same.
Mm. Mhm. Mm. It gives me so much joy to hear that, because that's such a dream of mine too. Like, I always just hold the vision of like, I want family and I don't care what it looks like. Like,
Mm,
I am open to I'm like, life is going to serve me probably a very strange formation, because I'm open to that and I don't feel like I have to do it this particular way. But ultimately, just there being so much love. It's a similar thing I have with my former partner, to, Chris. Like, it's like, you know, do I have moments of like human, like I want it to be a certain way? Of course, we all do,
Yeah.
right? But more, I would say 80 to 90% of the time, there's just so much gratitude for having a person in my life who I can never label. Like, I don't even know what to call you. And I love that you and Ava have it.
Yeah.
Bab, is that how you say
Bop.
it?
Yeah.
Bob,
Yeah. It's
Bob.
our bop. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, like I love that you guys just created a name. And I remember like telling Chris, like, we need to come up with some version of that, because I can't say like a paragraph of like our history every time I'm like, this is who this person is to me, because it's like, how do you even put it in a word or a sentence or a paragraph? And I think to me that actually is 100 times more important than labels and certainty and having it be like, this is who this person is for me. And it's just like, no, we have made an oath, a commitment to each other to love each other through the depths of everything. And we don't know what that's going to look like and what formation it will take, but that's what we're going to do. And so I see you guys doing something similar, where it's just like, we're open to however this unfolds, and ultimately love is at the center and is the compass of it all, you know.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I love that. Okay, so speaking of all the formations and all the things, the number one question I get across the board, and I would like to also ask you, that I get from my community, is how do you navigate jealousy? This is the number one thing I hear. How do you navigate jealousy? So I'm curious, what comes up for you and how you've worked that throughout the years.
So for me, I ask the question, what is jealousy? And then I get two answers. I get the embodied experience, which is like actually what's happening on a somatic level, physiological level, is that my belly starts to contract, my heart starts to beat, my palms become sweaty, and then I start to label all of what's happening inside my nervous system as fear. And then when I track the story is fear of whatever I love being taken away from me. And then that comes from scarcity, and it comes from my lack of trust in God, my lack of trust in something bigger, my lack of trust in whatever is playing out. And it comes from my wound and my fear of being alone, or my fear of not being valued, or my fear of not being seen, or my fear of not being honored, or my fear of whatever. And for everybody, it might be a different fear. So yeah, communication, like, first of all, having all of that awareness, whenever I start to feel what people would call as jealous, first of all, I just sit with myself, and I sit with all these layers of awareness. Okay, this is what's happening in my physical being. These are the stories that are attached to that. And it's probably usually rooted to either an idea of something, like a fear of which is an idea, or maybe a past experience of something happening. But for me, like, to say I'm jealous means that I believe in my story,
Ah, interesting. Got it.
right? It's like I'm believing in my story, which is not me. I may have sadness, or I may have vulnerability. I may have fear, but I don't yeah, the idea or the concept of jealousy doesn't really, yeah, it doesn't really exist in my worldview, if I'm honest. Now, it doesn't mean that I don't have this somatic experience when I see my partner with someone else. It doesn't, and usually what happens is I just shy away, and I retract, and then I feel like a little insecure, but I'm getting better and better at like bringing myself in and being like, wow, if my partner chooses to have an experience with someone else, and we are choosing each other fully, and there's not something underneath that's like actually playing out, where like he wants something else or I want something else, but I'm not saying it or he's not saying it, and I can feel that, and that I could imagine could create jealousy, because then it's like there's lack of truth and lack of coherence, and you're feeling that on a somatic level and an energetic level, even though it's not being named, and that is unsafe. But if I'm in a truly safe connection, then for me, if my partner is connecting with someone else, I try to look at the other person, and I try to say, wow, like, what does that person have that I don't have? And it's not a them against me. It's a, we're all different flavors. I love vanilla. I love mint chocolate chip ice cream. Yeah. Like it's my favorite flavor and I love it. But do I want it all the time? No, not necessarily. Maybe every once in a while I want to try some chocolate. And like
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing wrong with that. And I think, even my partner now, he's quite a bit older than me. And I told him at the beginning of we did a whole shadow work on like date number 3. We did a shadow work ritual. And he's like, tell me all of the pieces that's preventing you from like fully stepping in. And my first one was maybe like, yeah, I'm afraid that like I'm going to want to make love to and or connect with younger men who are like big and buff and sexy and like like my animal just turns on and yeah, that's one of my biggest fears. And he's like, great, go have that. Like, if that's what you want, like, if that's a part of you, that, yeah, I'm not that. I'm different. And I'm just as good, if not better, for the right woman. And he knows, he's aware that like that's not what I want. I don't want necessarily. I thought I did. My ego thought I did, but then I dated enough of them and I'm like, no, 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 no. I will take him any day. Thank you. I will take him any day. Like, but it doesn't mean that I still don't want to like have a big buff, sexy, young six packs man like pick me up and throw me around and push me up against a wall every once in a while. And like that doesn't mean that I'm not like deeply madly in love with my partner.
Mm.
So if I can have this level of awareness and I can have this level of security within myself and I can have this level of trust within my relationship and I can bring my vulnerability in when I feel insecure or I feel fear, then jealousy doesn't actually have the space to exist
Mm.
in my experience, because jealousy actually just needs vulnerability to heal it, and it needs honesty and transparency inside the relationship of like, hey, actually, I love you and this is just an interesting flavor that I would love it. And if you have a transmission, if my partner goes away and has an amazing mind-blowing experience with someone and brings it back to me within the boundaries, and of course if we're not in a good place, like all there's lots of layers to this, but like then I'm like, wow, I want to thank the tantric goddess or the queen or the woman who was able to give him with a transmission and help him experience a part of himself that I maybe would have never even accessed. And
Mm.
now he has access to that and can bring it here. And
Right.
if it's all done from that level of awareness, then like, yeah, to me, it doesn't really exist.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that. Yeah, I think that also there is, the piece, and you started speaking to it at the beginning of like what's trusting that what's mine will stay in my life and be here for as long as it needs to be here, and what isn't will go away when it's time to go away. And I think that's what a lot of it comes down to is like, I need to hold on to this thing because I believe in my mind that this is the thing for me. And so I'm going to grab it and tie it up and put it here and be like, you're not going anywhere, or like put a ring on it. Although the ring, I want a ring. So there's, I think, a few different symbols. You can look at the symbol of a ring in different ways, but the people who are
Yes.
coming at it like, okay, like, I'm gonna, grab her, hold on to her, hold on to him while I can. It's like that's never going to be a deeply rich foundation, a super solid thing. That's going to be dictated by a piece of paper you signed or a ring that you have on your finger, instead of like true devotion, which oftentimes doesn't even come in the form of like full partnership, but you can be incredibly devoted to someone. And so I think
Hmm.
there's such a control. And going back to the anus, I feel like it's all connected, right? It's like if we can just fucking stop clenching our asshole
Yeah.
and just be like, what's mine is mine. Whoever's meant to come in and out, like I don't actually get to choose. I think helps us navigate these periods where it's like, oh, that's cute. Here's my control freak trying to control it. And the stuff that comes up around comparison. I mean, my when someone I was relating with started seeing this one other woman who like had exactly the opposite traits of me. It's like that was like the biggest trigger, because I'm like, oh, I can't sing, I don't look like that, like just the exact opposite, which of course made total sense because like you said, it is different flavors. But then you just go into like, oh no, I don't know how to do that, and I don't know how to do this. And it's like, okay, but what like can I find in the journey of being with myself and through these feelings, find what do I contribute, what do I have to offer, who am I, and that it's okay to not be everything. It's literally
Hmm.
impossible. I
Hmm.
am me, the end. And so, yeah, but it's definitely a journey.
Yeah.
Definitely a whole
Yeah.
process.
I think the main thing, if somebody's dealing with jealousy and it's coming up often, to me, it says that there's not enough safety and security within who they are and themselves.
Mm,
And also, there's probably a need, an underneath need that is not being discussed in the relationship, where somebody isn't really getting everything they need. They're not feeling truly full or truly met. And then it comes down to the question of the relationship of like, is this actually the right relationship alignment that we should be in, or is it something else? And I'm too afraid to say that because I don't want to let go, because I have a fear that I won't find the thing that I actually truly want in every way, shape, or form. And I feel like that's something for people to take with them to investigate.
way to drop some wisdom right there. That is good, good stuff. I'm looking at my notes real quick to see if there's anything else that I haven't gotten to ask you that I really wanted to ask. But I think maybe just in closing, I would love to hear a little bit more about real talk. Like, are there ever any times where you're like, this shit is so messy, I just want to be monogamous?
Yeah, so for me, like I don't consider myself definitely don't consider myself polyamorous. I'm actually not that open um to people who aren't in my inner circle. So I think something that keeps me very safe is that, like, actually the connections that I'm most open to are people who are my best friends and like my family. And I would way rather share eros and connections within my family rather than people that I don't know. So, like, even the last 3 years of my relating, even though I've been open, because I say that I'm more of I'm a monogamish type of person. I am more open, but I'm extremely devoted to whoever is the man in my life. And for me, there usually isn't a lot of things that happen outside. And if it does happen, it's brought in first. It's had there's a conversation about it. There's a like, hey, where are we? How does this feel? This is why I desire this, or vice versa. I feel like this will be a really powerful experience for me. I feel like it will support me in my growth and my evolution, and that's why I'm saying yes to it. And
Hmm.
or I'm just like, yeah, it doesn't really like for me. I can honestly say, like, even when I was with Sprout, which was 4 years ago, and he had another partner before he was with me, and then like that also the openness actually wasn't the most messy for me. It
Mhm.
hasn't really been the most challenging part. It's more just the childhood wounds, which are gonna come up anyway,
No matter
regardless of
what,
whether I'm yeah.
doesn't matter what format you're in, that shit's coming up. So,
Yeah, totally. So for me, like, it actually hasn't been so messy or challenging or dramatic.
yeah.
And maybe I'm just lucky, and because I know it's been the opposite for many people, and maybe I just pick people who are also quite monogamish like me, and we're actually just really want to be mainly with each other unless there's something really special that comes in, or a really beautiful, unique experience, or something we're all choosing together within the family.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, and for me, like running arrows, like just like running energy with someone is like, yeah, go run energy with someone. It's great, it's fun, enjoy. And then yeah, if it stays there and like yeah, we're running arrows and there's like not like a lot of kissing or
Mm,
going down on each other, whatever. It's like go have fun, enjoy. Like men also really like that. Men like that freedom. Men really like the ability to especially have variety. And I'm like, okay, great, as long as I'm full, as long as you're here with me,
mhm,
I
mm,
yeah.
yeah.
And yeah, I really want long-term committed partnership. So for me, realistically in my mind, I'm like, there are gonna be, if I'm gonna choose to be with you for a long period of time, chances are like we're gonna get sick of each other in some way at some point, and that's okay. And can we just accept that? And can we
Yeah.
just accept that that's yeah, that we just talk about it when that happens.
Oh,
So
yeah. I
yeah.
mean, I feel like we're very similar in that sense, because there is this assumption. I think there's this myth that being open means you're having a shit ton of sex. And I'm like, no, actually,
Yeah, not at all.
for 2.5 years, I was in an open relationship where for the first two, I didn't even look at anyone else or entertain the possibility of even running energy with someone else, because
Yeah.
I just wasn't in that place. I was very
Yeah.
much into the person who was in front of me. But the ease that comes with the sort of the leaning back and sitting into, like, hey, we're going to trust the truth. And when the
Mm,
truth shows up as, hey, there's attraction, or there's something even more than attraction, like something so soul level deep that has to be followed, who the fuck am I to tell another person, no, you're mine? I'm sorry, you're gonna have to be caged in this, in this little,
yeah.
like, I would never want someone to stay with me because of that. I would want to feel the devotion from a place of, oh, I get to be anywhere and with anyone, and I'm still choosing you.
Yes.
Yeah. And so I do think we have to uh, kill this myth of, like, oh, just because you're open, it means you're very, um, promiscuous or like sexual being. And it's like, no, it's just my value is I don't want to possess my partner, and I don't want to feel possessed either. And I just am in devotion to truth, and truth may
Mm,
be 10 years of never having sex with anyone.
mm.
Or in 1 month, there's like 10 of them. Who knows?
If it's true, you never know. I love this, Nadia. I really love that you spoke into this, because this phrase of like, I'm in devotion to truth, is literally how I live, and how my now current partner also lives. It's like, I'm in devotion to truth, and I want that to be the currency that bonds us, not a story or a label or
Mm.
anything else.
Oh,
Yeah.
truth as the currency that binds us. So good. So good. So you've got a couple of things coming up. Tell us about it as we are closing our conversation today.
Yeah. So my deepest desire is to, yeah, give anyone who desires to have this kind of connection and intimacy and sexuality the tools to do that. Like, this path has absolutely changed my life in the best way possible. I feel so abundant. I feel so alive. I feel so in my body. I feel so juicy. I feel so confident. It's like so loved, honored. I mean, I could go on. And I feel that everybody gets to have that if they choose. And so I look at my life and I say, okay, what are the things that I've done where I've learned how to, yeah, receive this, cultivate this, create this. And so my life has just been a compilation of really intimacy and sexuality, and this is the work that I do in the world. And so for the first project that's coming out the most soon is something called Deeper Intimacy. And this is for couples. So people who are like, I don't want to go to a temple. That feels way too out of my comfort zone. But I've been with my partner. The sex life is not so alive anymore, or we're running into the same patterns, or like intimacy is stale. We feel like more like roommates. We're just kind of living, doing the everyday thing. Like, we've lost our zest and our passion. And for that happens a lot to couples. And so we created Deeper Intimacy for Couples, which is essentially 10 tantric date night experiences where, instead of their intimacy being going out to a restaurant and then going home and having sex the way they always do or always did, which might not even be fulfilling anymore, but they don't know how to talk about it and do something different, we created Deeper Intimacy. So this is really great for people who they don't want to go to workshops, they don't want to go to trainings, they just want to like kind of be safe in their own little bubble. They don't want to be in spaces with other people also moving sexual energy. So that's really exciting. And then for people who really want to go, for women, this one's for women who really just are like, oh my God, everything you stand for, Nadia stands for, or these tantric women stand for. I want to live it. I want to breathe it. I want to dive into it. I want to explore it. I want to be the embodiment of that. I want to initiate men. I want to have crazy, amazing, mind-blowing sexual experiences that I could write books about, like Margot Anand. if that's you, then you'll want to come to the Sexual Initiatrix Retreat, which is now something that me and my amazing tantric sister Aria are starting to teach and spread around the world. We have one coming up in Ibiza, which is sold out, and it's a week-long journey teaching women how to become these sexual initiatrices. So whether you have a partner and you want to take him deeper, or you don't have a partner and you want to learn how to actually have men meet you, then you're going to learn how to become this sexual initiatrix. And then we're moving it in Bali in Goa. Our next one is in Goa. So we just launched that, and we're going to India, which is like, yeah, an amazing, amazing land for both me and Arya, where we learn so much of our spirituality and devotion. And that will eventually lead into a teacher training, a tantric teacher training facilitation for women around how do we create more safe, sexual, empowered, deeply devotional spaces. So that's all happening in the next 6 months to a year, which feels really exciting.
So fun. So fun. All right. Well, maybe I'll come to Goa.
Yeah, come to Goa. Oh, there's also the Tantra Festival, which is really beautiful as well.
Ooh,
Yeah.
okay. Well,
Yeah.
we'll talk more after this. All of these links will be in the show notes so that you
Cool.
can explore, read more about the offerings. And I just want to thank you so much for your wisdom and your beautiful light that you're bringing to us today. And just thank you for your time.
Thank you. It's really nice that we get to live epic lives and share about it in a space where we can inspire other people. And I cannot wait till the country and the timelines align to where we get to connect and play and feel each other in the bodies and dance and it's going to be amazing. Yeah.
I'm feeling it super soon. It feels really soon.
Yay. Let's plan this winter. Let's get out of Dodge this winter and go to someplace nice. We'll also be in Bali. I think the first level of the facilitation will be in Bali in March. So Goa in end of January, February, and then Bali in March. So whichever one calls you, babes. Like, I would love to, not that you even have to do the training, but just come hang out,
Yeah.
like just enjoy.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah.
Great. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you, love.
If you enjoyed the guest on this episode, you can head on over to the show notes to get more info on their bio, their work, their website, and all the good stuff. I love you guys so much. Thank you for listening. We would love for you to rate and review the show, and I'd love to know your takeaways from the episode. You can do that by DMing me on Instagram at Nadia Munla.